Today we're doing this one, The Sickness, book number 29, and the next in the Cassie book series. Cassie has, roughly in about the last 10-15 books, sort of risen in the ranks of my favourite Animorphs, and she's probably second at the moment. I've really been enjoying her character arc because it's probably the most interesting one of the lot. Start off as this Mary Sue that everyone loves, respects, and she always says the right thing and blah 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 blah. So this moralising, hypocritical liability. And I love it. I love Cassie. So how does she deal in this book? This is a ghost-written book, by the way, by, is it Melinda Metz? Yes, Melinda Metz. Melinda Metz's first ghost-written book. And how does she deal with this book? So let's just cover that quickly. I think her characterisation, her use of the characters and how they responded to each other, how they interacted, I thought it was really good for the most part. There are a couple of flaws, but for the most part, I think it's very good. The humour, not as good as in the last book, but I think that's to be expected because that was an Axe book. And something I forgot to mention about the last book is Axe didn't really get any character development. He was just a one-liner. It's like a one-liner comedian throughout the book, but that's all right. Yeah, the humour, obviously in a Cassie book, is going to be dampened somewhat. But I think with the little bits that were thrown in here or there, I think Melinda did a grand job. So, well done for that, Melinda. The writing style is absolutely fine. In fact, I'd say it's better than fine. The big plus with this book is that it is an enjoyable read. It's really enjoyable. And it's, at times, it feels really unpredictable. At times. Which is not something that happens often in Animorphs books. Because it's geared towards young adults, the plots can be pretty straightforward. And it doesn't help that the books are episodic as well. It does make the plots a bit simpler. But this one was done very well. And I think, for the most part, it was done all right. There was a problem with pacing at times. I think especially during the middle section of the book with the water tower scene, which we will get into. I think the pacing was a bit weird. And that sort of brought me out of the immersion of it a little bit. But on the whole, Melinda has done a good job. There is a big problem with this book, though. A big, big, big problem. The plot, okay? People really like this book, and reading it, I can see why. There's a lot of positive stuff about this book, but it's brought down like a fucking crashing tidal wave by this monstrous plot. And we will get into that. But do I blame the ghostwriter for the plot? Because remember that the outline for these books is given by the original authors. I don't know how much of a say they have in the precise plot points in these books. So that's completely up to speculation, completely. We've got no, as far as we know, unless somebody goes and asks the authors, how much of an involvement in the plot points in these ghost-written books they had. Because if it was mostly down to Melinda, then I've got to say all my praise sort of falls away. But I'm going to assume that it's sort of half-half, and I can't blame Melinda wholly for the plot of this book. But without further going into criticising it in general, let's get into the plot specifics. The first two chapters of this book are really quite good, I think. They're at, well, firstly, the first scene, they're in the school cafeteria, and there's these two random girls talking about Cassie, and no, they're talking about Jake. And then Rachel says, no, Jake is with Cassie. And she leads them over to Jake, and Marco sat at another table. And she says, right, you're going to the dance with Jake here. And this scene doesn't add up to anything. It really doesn't, but it's well written. It's got a few good little one-liners here. And it leads us into chapter 2, which is, again, good fun. They're in the school gymnasium at some sort of, is it a prom? I think it's just like a school dance sort of thing. And they're in there. Axe and Tobias are there as well, which is probably, why would you allow that, Jake? Why would you allow, I mean, Tobias, cool, he can go there. He's no problem. But Axe? Why would you bring that guy in? Where there's food everywhere. Why would you do this? Why? But yeah, those first two chapters, good. Not really relevant, but I liked them. I enjoyed them. And in the end, isn't that what truly matters? All the while throughout, I believe, chapter 2. Yes, it was chapter 2. Cassie is having inner monologue. She's getting all philosophical in her own head while everyone else is doing their own thing. And she thinks about the Yeerks. I think since the whole Aftran incident back in book 19, The Departure, which was a great book, by the way, she has been seeing from the Yeerks' perspective, which is, it's not hard to comprehend that being the case. And this is Cassie, after all, the moralistic, is that a word? That one. That character. She's the one that hugs trees and shit. So, not that there's anything particularly wrong with that. But she's thinking about things from the Yeerks' perspective, and she's doing it during the school dance, which appears to be the wrong time, and she a little bit chastises herself for getting lost in her head while all this is going on. But there's an interesting line, and a really good line, and I think it's the best line from the book. I didn't bother telling my friends that what I was thinking about. None of them are all that... That's not grammatically correct. None of them are all that interested. It should be none of them is all that interested in considering the I didn't see that when I first read it. It should be none of them is all that interested in considering the joys a Yeerk can find in a host. Not that I blame them. This line here. Yeerks are the enemy. It's easier for us to do our job if we see them as evil. Pure evil. Now that little line there, I'll repeat it to you. Yeerks are the enemy. It's easier for us to do our job if we see them as evil. Pure evil. I think that's a brilliant line that's been thrown in there. And it's one of those little nuances that Animorphs throws in occasionally that is a lot deeper than it might come across at first. And probably little kids, like 12, 13-year-old, reading this book for the first time, wouldn't think anything of that. But as a grown man, I looked at this and I thought, that's really deep, that's really philosophical. And we all do this. We all do it. Go on Twitter, and you'll see pretty much everywhere on Twitter somebody calling someone else evil, pure evil. They are evil people. They are practically Satan. They're all Hitler. And we do it because it makes us easier. It makes it easier for us to fight them. That's what this line is saying. And Cassie is... She's looking at that point of view and accepting it as the way that they continue to do their job. She knows that it's not correct, but she says it makes it easier for us to do what we have to do. And it's a really poignant line, and I really like it. Axe gets sick, right? So they're in the place, and then his eye stalks start popping out, diddly diddly. And he starts demorphing and remorphing, and it's like going through these cycles. And the animal starts to panic. What the fuck is going on? What's all this? And so they move him around this place. They start throwing bits of clothing over so he gets hidden. And they rush him out of the school gymnasium. And there is Chapman, of course, and a teacher called Mr. Tidwell, who, according to Cassie, is one of the strictest teachers in the school. Not that that really plays into anything. But they bump into them, and Tidwell takes Axe aside. Some of the Animorphs deal with Chapman, and the others... Basically, they're trying to get Axe away from these two teachers. Chapman becomes a non-issue because he goes elsewhere. Tidwell deals with Axe, and they get Axe away from him. But in the process, Axe's tail comes out, and he whacks Tidwell across the head. He falls over. Cassie helps him up, and then Tidwell takes Cassie away to the side, and suddenly... he says, I know what your friend is. He is an Andalite. And Cassie's like, oh no! But it turns out that he's apparently part of the Yeerk peace movement. One of the things that I found unusual here is that this is the first time, I believe, as far as I remember, it's the first time the Yeerk peace movement is ever brought up. But it's talked about throughout this as if they all knew it existed. Just the way it's written. I'm part of the Yeerk peace movement. Oh yeah. Carry on with the conversation. It's like, well, what's the Yeerk peace movement? What do you do? You know, it's like they've heard of it all before, but it's just felt a bit weird. Anyway, Tidwell, whose Yeerk name is Ilim, says that Aftran, the Yeerk that Cassie interacted with back in book 19, Aftran is in trouble. She's been captured and Visser 3 is going to come down to interrogate Aftran. Why he doesn't take Aftran to his torture chamber that we've established twice is on his blade ship, I suppose the plot doesn't require that anymore. It's easier for it to just be in the Yerk pool. So now we've got two problems. Axe is sick, Aftran is captured, and in a few days it's suspected that Visser 3 is going to come down and torture to find out information. She knows all about casting the Animorphs, she knows about the Yerk peace movement, and they are fucked if this goes ahead. And of course they're just assuming that Aftran is just going to spill all the information. That's just a given. That's just a given. There's no... I mean, do they have mind-reading technology? They probably do. I mean, the plot will just decide that it exists if it had to. They take Axe back to Cassie's barn, and Axe starts to explain what the heck is wrong with him. It turns out that it's something called the tria, or tria. Pronunciation unclear. I'm just going to call it the tria gland for future reference. The tria gland has had an infection and it's going to explode, which is going to kill Axe, and they've got to operate on it by the time his temperature reaches 91.3 degrees. It's definitely 91 something. And once the temperature, his body temperature has dropped down to that level, they have to operate on him and remove his tria gland. Now this, on the surface, is okay, cool. But delve a bit deeper, right? I think we'll do that at the end of this book in the big summation of the book. But let's just run with the plot for now. So because Axe is now in Cassie's barn, he's going to stay there because they don't want to put him back in the woods because his health could deteriorate. But they're also concerned that Cassie's dad might come in and see Axe there. Nobody asked where Cassie's mother is because apparently she doesn't know the barn exists and never goes in there. But Cassie's dad is the big problem. So they invite Eric over, everybody's favourite twat, Eric the Chi. They invite him over. And I remember back in book 25 I said, oh, the Chi only seemed to appear once every 5 books. We've had 5 straight books, I believe. Yes, 5. Where Eric has turned up and done something. He's practically the new Animorph at this point. Or at least he's like the 7th member of the team. He's appeared so frequently in this last string of books that he's basically part of the main cast now. He comes over and he provides a hologram in this empty stall where Axe is sitting so that Cassie's dad doesn't see anything in there. Now there's a line here on page 39 which I think is wonderful. The Chi are heavily programmed against violence, but that doesn't mean they don't hate the Yerks. And they are the best spies you can imagine. Cassie. Are you a fucking dolt? What are you talking about, best spies you can imagine? Remember the last book? Where they said, oh, this shit is going down in this place, but we don't have a fucking clue what it is, even though we could walk in there easily, get the job done in 5 minutes and tell you all about it. Great spy work, lads. And not only that, book 20. Oh, these world leaders are going to have a meeting in this place on this specific date. Mark your watch, time your watches, whatever. It turns out they got the wrong fucking day. Great fucking spy work, lads. The greatest spies you could fucking imagine. Fuck off. Fuck off, are they? Fucking greatest double crossers you can imagine. Yeah, I still don't like you, Chi. I just want to take a moment here to point out how great Jake is again at this point. He is so decisive here. Every time a decision has to be made, he just says, we're doing this, go. He literally just says, go, now. Do it, go. Oh, Jake. Mate, I love it. I fucking love it, right? Good stuff. I like it, Jake. Still top of the mountain on my favourite character list. So let's do the next little bit on the Chi, because I wrote this down on my notes later in the book, but it applies here just as well. So the animals realise that they're going to have to do a surgery on Axe. Eric is there. What do we know about the Chi? They essentially have a hive mind, and what I mean by that is all their minds are shared in this iCloud. There's like a Dropbox for the Chi that they just pull information from instantaneously. So every Chi that has ever been on Earth, for the entirety of their time on Earth, all that information, so far as we know, is readily available to them. Not only that, but they work with machine precision, they have inhuman strength, and they can read. This is established in this book. They can read multiple books simultaneously at high speed without missing any information. On the other hand, you have Cassie, whose only experience with animal care is shoving pills into geese. Who's more qualified to do brain surgery? It doesn't take a fucking genius to figure it out, does it? Eric, you don't raise your hand. I will do the surgery, even if I'm not skilled in this, or even if no Chi ever has done any sort of brain surgery or surgery whatsoever. I am not going to do this. You are clearly the superior one in this regard. Christ, if he doesn't know anything about brain surgery, he could send an instant message to all the other Chi saying, go to a library, pick up a book on surgery, pick up every book on surgery, and read them simultaneously. And then what? 10 minutes later, I'm a doctor now. Move aside, Cassie. Move aside. In comes the doctor. But no, he just sits there silently like, this is full, isn't it? Because you know what? That's probably what he's thinking. I'm still in the mind that it's canon that the Chi are just fucking around with everybody in this book. Eric's just happy to sit there watching all this go down, thinking, you know, I could fix this mess. I could. Even without, if I don't have the skills now, I could get those skills within 5 minutes. Not a problem. But you know what? Zip, I'm just going to sit here with a big smile on my face. Yeah, we get it, Eric. You're a double-crosser, traitor, bastard, but nobody's picking up on it. Great. Keep having the banter, lad. Don't let me stop you with the banter. Just carry on. Keep doing what you're doing, twat. One by one, the Animorphs also start to get sick. They start to drop off one by one. And they're basically out of action. The Animorphs' idea that they establish is that they have to go down to the Yerk pool to rescue Aftran because that is the priority. And I like how Jake is putting this across, that Axe is not the priority. Our priority is Aftran. And that's something that... There's a moment in this book where Cassie's more focused on Axe than the Aftran stuff. And the rest of the team are getting frustrated with it, which is, I think, great characterisation. It's good stuff. Melinda, good job with that. Love it. So the plan is to go get Aftran and then, I don't know, do surgery whenever they need to. Seems to be the plot. The first Animorph to get sick, other than Axe, though it's technically not an Animorph apparently, the first one is Jake. And this happens after they come up with an idea to get into the Yerk pool by going into the water tower and going through... This is your plan? This is your plan? You know of a bat cave that leads directly into the... Oh, fucking forget it. I suppose with the bats, the hunter-killer robots will get you. You know, those big flying balls that were only ever in Book 17. And I have to apologise to Book 17, by the way. I said in that book, oh, I don't think these things ever appear again. What diddly do? That's what I said. What a twat I am, right? They appear in this book and they are consistent with how they were in Book 17. So Book 17, you're 1% less shit than you already are. You're still shit though. Don't you forget that. So Marco has this idea to go into the water tower and go through the drainage. Apparently Eric knows the drainage, not the drainage, the water systems, the pipes that go underground. He knows exactly which ones lead to the Yerk pool. And you're saying that you know nothing about surgery. If you know shit that is this irrelevant, what? Please save me. But yeah, they go in as eels, and it's a foolish endeavour because they get halfway down. Then Jake starts to get sick, funnily enough, and they get lost, and they just let the flow go, and they end up in a burning building. And then they escape the burning building in Birdmorph, and Jake goes home sick. And all this was in about 3 pages. Remember when I said at the start that the pacing was a bit weird? This scene here is just, it's just over in a flash. Oh, there's a burning building, and they're flung through a fire hose, and they have to demorph in the building, and they go upstairs in the building when there's a fire, even though they should know that smoke rises and you're going to do yourself some damage. But whatever. Okay, whatever. Why did it have to be a burning building? Why couldn't it just been a tap somewhere? Why was the burning building involved if it's just going to be on one page and have no relevance to the rest of the story? It doesn't really add any tension because they're just in it and they say, oh, there's a fire in here. Quick, let's slowly go morph and fly away. Okay. School the next day, the animals start dropping off one by one, and then it's just Cassie left. But she has an idea after speaking to Mr. Tidwell again, because she goes to see Mr. Tidwell at school and says, oh, my friends are sick. But then, yeah, that's during the school, and then after school, when she realises that Tobias, who is the last one before her to go be sick, she takes her bike to Tidwell's house. She doesn't fly, she takes a bike. It's not really explained why. I assume it's for when she gets there and she has to look normal, but I don't fucking know. She goes into Mr. Tidwell's house, or Illim, as the Yerk is called, and they have a discussion. They come up with a plan whereby he goes into the Yerk pool, Tidwell, with Cassie as a Yerk in his head and Illim in his jacket pocket. And once they're in there, Cassie gets let loose into the Yerk pool, where apparently Aftran is kept, and they know that it's never explained that she's going to be there. They just happen to know. I'm assuming Tidwell knew, but it would have been nice if the story before this point had established that, rather than just spring it upon us at the appropriate time. Jesus Christ. So Cassie goes into the pool. Tidwell then, you assume, puts Illim back on his head. That's never explained. I don't know why they had to I keep saying... No, Illim is a male. Okay, yeah, I'm getting confused. But we don't know why Illim's being taken. He's just in his pocket. And then once Cassie's disappeared, Tidwell fiddles with it and nothing happens from it. I don't fucking know. She goes in, and Aftran is in a little box attached to a chain to the pier. Why? I don't know, because the plot wanted there to be a relatively straightforward solution to the problem that they face. What are you doing, mate? I don't know. Maybe it's normal for the Yerks to do weird stuff like this. It just seems bizarre that that's the method they would use to hold Yerks. A little box on a chain attached to the pier. Can't you come up with something better than that? But she's in there and she's trying to swim towards it. And then Visifree arrives at just the right time. Great, love it. And he pulls Aftran out and showing Aftran to the other Yerks. He's standing on the pier doing this, of course, because he's always in the wrong place at the wrong time. Cassie goes into the ear of some child who apparently is a voluntary controller. Again, that doesn't play into anything relevant to the plot. And charges at Visifree on the pier and shocks him. And she's able to take Aftran from the Visser's grasp and fucking leg it and jump back in the pool. Wow. Visifree. This is supposed to be a trained Andalite warrior. The Visser. The one Andalite controller. How do you let this shit happen? You've got 360 vision, first off. Secondly, you're the most ruthless bloody character possibly in fictional history. You get hit by this girl and she fights you and pulls your slug away and you allow them to escape. At what point do you think, maybe I should incapacitate this human in some manner? Tailblade, whip, gone. But no, he's just, I don't know what to do in this situation. I'm so shocked and stunned. Oh, she got away. Oh, rats. What a fucking dud of a creature. Honestly, Visifree, do better. Cassie is then in the Yerk pool, just underwater, morphing and demorphing what felt like several times. And she manages to morph an owl and flies up, just as the Visser's in with his big bloody thing. And apparently the Taxons that go in after Cassie don't find her. I mean, they find her once, but she gets away. Oh no, they find the girl. Yeah, okay, that makes a bit more sense. I'm just remembering in my head now. So she left this this host to take the fire. And she swims away and starts doing like the morphing stuff. The Yerks apparently have no sensors to see what's going on inside this pool, which seems as a bit of an oversight, but again, when have the Yerks not been guilty of a little bit of oversight here or there? She eventually morphs owl and flies up out of the pool. The Visser is this weird tentacle monster that all it's capable of is a little bit of a slap. Oh, you owl, get down. Oh, slap you. And that's it. That's Visser's great new morph. Can't even fucking take down an owl properly. Oh my god. Visser 3. You are an clown. You are an clown. Right? But she flies away and she heads for the exit. And that's when the single hunter robot finds her, follows her, shoots her once to no great effect, stands there looking at Cassie. And then Cassie turns around, aims, and unleashes an assault of bird shite onto the eye of this thing. Because remember back in book 17, how do we deal with this hunter-killer robot? I know, we'll throw things at the eye thing and it will be all a stutter. And it won't be able to fire anymore. And that applies here as well. Fuck me. The incompetence levels are through the roof. I just said Ruth. Who the fuck's Ruth? But this raises a major question, doesn't it? So, the bird morph comes ready loaded with feces, apparently. Does that make sense? No! It actually doesn't make sense. But it made sense for the plot. The plot thought it made sense. We're turning into book 17 here. Quite literally we're turning into book 17. Even the fucking hunter robots are there. Don't do this to me, book 29. But anyway, she's able to escape because a human appears at just the right time for her to fly out. And she flies away. And she gets back. She has Aftran, gets back to Axe. And now he's at the crisis point, so they need to perform the surgery now. And Cassie takes him to... Or Eric takes him, lifts him, puts him on the surgery table. And she's looking at him thinking, oh shit, I'm actually not a surgeon. Oh, this is impossible. Because she doesn't even know where this tria gland is. I broke my own thing there. I said tria instead of tria. She doesn't even know where it is. She doesn't think to ask Eric where it might possibly be if he has any solution. No, he's just standing there. Tiddly diddly. I'm just watching. I'm having fun. And she has an idea. And she gets Aftran to go into Axe's head. So she's infested Axe with Aftran. And Aftran explains where the tria gland is. And I don't understand how... So Axe is unable to use his own thought speak. But once the Yerk is in Axe's head, the Yerk is able to control Axe's thought speak to talk to Cassie. Something about that just seems wrong to me. I can't quite get my head around why I think that's wrong, but it felt wrong. It felt wrong that fucking Illim's gone. Aftran was able to control Axe's thought speak even though Axe was basically unconscious. It's... Basically, if I'm unconscious and you put a Yerk in my ear, am I going to start talking? I'm unconscious, but I'm talking to you. It just... No, it's not right. It's not right. But I suppose because it's thought speak, you know, it's this otherworldly thing we haven't got a fucking clue about, so maybe it works. I don't know. Anyway, because Aftran's in there, she's able to say to Cassie, it's over there. So Cassie becomes expert surgeon number 1 on a fucking alien and saves Axe's life. Aftran comes out after Axe starts panicking. Apparently Axe is screaming. And that was a fun little bit. But Aftran and Cassie have saved Axe. And that's practically the end of the book. The last scene, it comes after Aftran asks Cassie to kill her because she will die of Kandrona starvation in a few days. But the Animorphs decide not to kill Aftran. They decide instead to turn Aftran into a Nothlit. They give her the power to morph using the Escafil device and turn her into a whale. And that's the end of the book. Let's deal with that whale issue, shall we? Back in book 4, if you remember, Cassie basically asked, if I'm remembering this right, she basically asked permission of the whale to acquire it. Because she has this whole thing where she doesn't like morphing sentient beings. And she considers whales, from what we know of Cassie, she pretty much thinks of whales as these sentient beings. She doesn't like the idea of morphing them. So she gets someone to become a whale Nothlit. Okay. I mean, we know Cassie is a moral hypocrite, but this just seems bizarre. She thinks to herself, well, two things, right? When she went into the Yerk pool back in that scene, she said the Yerk pool feels like home. Okay, so we added that for some reason. Maybe it's the... But then later on, she thought to herself, oh, it must be hell in that Yerk pool for Aftran, having to go there. Okay, so what is it? Does it feel like home or does it feel like hell, Cassie? Which one are we going for here? But she might just be referring to Aftran because she has to live in secrecy, whatever. But look at it this way. She's saying, oh, it must be hell to live in this water all your life, hardly ever able to see anything or do anything. It must be hell for you. So my solution to your problem is to let you spend your entire life as a whale. A whale where you have no company, nobody to talk to, and you're doomed to the ocean. A big bucket of water. Oh, it must have been so horrible in that Yerk pool for you. All you ever see is water, and there's nothing to do, and you can't really talk to anyone. So I thought of a solution for you.
The same but worse. I shall doom you to life in the ocean forever. From one watery hell to another.
I mean, Christ, we had this discussion on the Discord. What else could she have done? I had a couple of suggestions, other people had suggestions. Some people said Hork-Bajir. Axe could teach Aftran the Frollis manoeuvre, which, funnily enough, he's never taught anybody. He could use that to give Aftran a Hork-Bajir body of multiple different Hork-Bajir combined into one. Could do that. Could be useful as well, and doesn't have to be human, so away from the Yerks. But if you think, oh, Hork-Bajir could be a problem because that could get reinfested, why not a dog? You know, Cassie could just come home one day and say, look, parents, I have an stray dog, and look, it can do backflips. Can we keep him, please? Or even better yet, in my opinion, Bird of Prey. Tobias in the first, well, books 1 to 13, his whole job was observation. And the Yerks aren't going to infest a bird of prey. Aftran would be pretty bloody useful to the animals. I'm sure Aftran would want to help in the war efforts. Surely, at this point. I mean, she was with Tidwell. Why not allow her to continue to help you out in a body that the Yerks will never infest, as far as we know? And will probably never find this bird. They're not going to be interested in a bird. Give Aftran a bird of prey morph. Why a fucking whale? Firstly, Cassie, you're breaking your own bloody rules about morphing sentient beings and making a fucking Nothlit one. And dooming somebody from a hell of living in water for all their time. The solution to you is to let them live in water for a lifetime. With nobody to talk to, no friends, and me personally, if I'd get fucking bored after a day of looking at water, I might jump out of the water once or twice, and then I think, well, this is me for the next 60 years. Honest to God, what a poor ending. And that's not the worst of it. We've not even covered the major issue in this book. There's one other bit I just want to cover, one bit that I missed from my notes, page 102. This is when Cassie has morphed the Yerk and gone into Tidwell's head. I didn't want to see that. I didn't want to go pouring through Mr. Tidwell's memories. I wished I could apologise to him, but even though I could still hear his thoughts, I didn't know how to send my thoughts back. Seriously, Cassie? Have you forgotten how fucking ThoughtSpeak works? You didn't know how to send him my thoughts back. Yes, you do. Yes, you fucking do. Stop pissing around and crack on with it. What's the... It's just silly writing. Right. If we're up to this point, if I said nothing more, this book would probably be an 8 out of 10. But, and this is a big but, this is an American-sized but. There is a fundamental flaw in this book, and it is hard to get around. In fact, for me, it's impossible to get around, because every single page I was thinking about it. This sickness, the tree gland thing, it makes zero sense. Not a bit of sense. So Axe obviously gets this sickness while he's in human morph. Apparently this sickness is from the tree gland, which is heavily implied that is strictly an Andalite thing. Humans don't have this tree gland. Okay. So Axe gets this sickness while he's in human morph. Do you not see the problem with that? How the fuck does that work? That makes no sense. If the problem is stemming from the tree gland, how is he experiencing this problem while he's in a human body? Everything Andalite about him is somewhere off in Z space, doing its thing. How is this a problem? Not only that, but demorphing is supposed to heal you. Apart from that one time in Megamorphs 2 where inexplicably this concept went out the window and even the Animorphs were like, well, that's that rule gone, just for this one occasion. It's supposed to heal you. So how are we experiencing this problem? Especially since he's remorphing and demorphing and whatever, but he shouldn't be doing it. But this isn't the worst thing here. The worst thing is how the fuck are the Animorphs getting sick? They're not Andalites. They don't have a tree gland in any sense. How are they getting sick? What is this sickness? It makes no sense. And it is the main plot point of the book. And it has zero strings of logic for me to pluck at to find any fucking rationality to any of this. It's an amorphous blob of stupidity in this book. That's just the centre of everything. I'm going to go back to my cake analogy. Right, you've got a cake and the icing is lovely. It's got strawberries and chocolate and whipped cream. And there's even a pot noodle on it, and I fucking love pot noodles. That's all lovely. And you cut it open and there's just a big wad of solid stupidity there. I'm not eating that shit. When your book relies on inanity for the major plot point, it's not a good book. I'm sorry, but some people may be able to look past this flaw. But after every turn of the page, I was thinking about it. I was thinking, how are the Animorphs getting sick? This doesn't make sense. Why isn't this being explained? And I thought, as I was getting closer to the end, I thought, surely at some point there's been a mistake here, and somebody in the book is going to turn around and say, hold on, this isn't the tree gland, this is some other illness, which is why it's also affecting us, and why it affects Axe even when he's not in his own body. It's some other morph, maybe it's Kryak, or maybe Eric's pissing around again, I don't fucking know. But here's the actual problem that we're facing. But no, it turns out it is this tree gland. Well, why are they getting... It's batshit. It's batshit. And there's something I did with book 17. Something I did, and I'm going to show you. This book is similar to book 17 in quite a few ways. Not only does it have the fucking hunter robots in there again, but it has the crappy escape from the Yerk pool. And these plot points that are just ridiculous, to the point where it's not even funny. But this is what I did to book 17. Come here, book 17. I'm going to show the audience what happened to you when I finished my review of you. Here we are, book 17. This is what I did to book 17. And I considered doing that to you, 29, several times. But I'm not going to, because it's not that bad. It's not that bad, but it is a fundamentally flawed book. The scores. Right, let's get Jake's leadership out of the way, because he wasn't in for much of this book, and the major plot action was completely devoid of Jake. He was very good in this, I thought. I thought he was very good in the points that he was in. He was in control. He wanted things done. He was decisive. I'm going to give him a 7. It would have been 8 if he'd had more to do with the plot, but he was in for a limited time. So I'm going to give him a lovely little 7. The book. As I mentioned, if it weren't for the catastrophe that is the plot, it would have been an 8, bordering on a 9, I think. Cassie's character development is good, apart from the whale bit at the end, which let's just please forget. And the writing style is entertaining. I read it all pretty much in a one-er. I really enjoyed it. Apart from the stupidity core. What do I give you, Sickness? Tell me. I'm quite torn, because I'm quite ambivalent on this book. I've found it entertaining. And what did I say at the start of this episode? As long as I'm entertained, that's what matters. But in this rant, I've come to the conclusion that it has angered me. It has angered me. I'm going to give it a 5. A 5. Which is the second lowest of the main series. Book 17 got a 3, which was, yeah, much worse than this one. So, yeah, it's definitely better than a 3. But that core of inanity in this book just really threw me off. It made no sense. Not a lick of sense. And to me, as a reader, that's inexcusable. And that's why you're dragged down. So you're not quite a drop it, but you're virgin. You're not a virgin, you are verging on the floor. Do you understand this? You do? Excellent. Right, so the next book, we're taking another detour from the main series, once again, to look at this one. This shiny example of an Animorphs book. This is Megamorphs 3, Elfangor's Secret. I'm looking forward to this one. Should be some pretty entertaining stuff. If you like fan fiction, I do fan fiction. I'm still working on editing some of these, so this is an outdated version now. In the future, I'm hopefully going to print off a load of copies and send them out to people. I can't sell them for copyright reasons, but, you know, I'm happy enough to just send copies to people when that time eventually comes. If you like talking to other Animorphs fans, join the Animorphs Discord. That's linked below. And have a good time there, because people do. It's a very enjoyable place. We talk about things. Got it? Okay. This has been another Animorphs book review. I hope you've enjoyed this one. I know a lot of you might not, because I know this book is very popular. But like Alaran's Choice, I'm not here to pander to popularity. I'm going to call bullshit where I see it. And I'm calling your bullshit out, Sickness. Making me sick. That's how I feel towards your plot. Anyway, enough said. Ta-ra.